Bob seems like an ordinary man, living in a small northern town and working at a lumber mill. His ex-wife, Darling, and daughter, Eva, live far away and their relationship is strained. Eva, now in a troublesome phase, behaves oddly and completely ignores her mother. One day, Bob returns home and receives a call from Darling, who complains about Eva and asks him to intervene. However, Bob asks to be left alone and abruptly ends the call, though he is deeply troubled by Eva's behavior. To relieve some tension, he heads to a bar, where he soon notices a dealer. Later, they meet on the street and the young man tells Bob that his boss, Nelson, needs couriers. He remembers Bob from his NNL days, especially a famous fight Bob would rather forget. Cutting off the young man's enthusiasm, Bob buys some goods. Upset by rising prices at work, Bob goes to inspect a malfunctioning block of the crusher. He climbs up to the machine and stares inside as if he wants to step into the blades. His grim thoughts are interrupted by a co-worker's voice, and Bob abandons the frightening idea. Later, he tells his boss he needs a few days off, packs his things, and sets off on a trip. However, on the road that night, Bob suddenly feels very ill. Racked with pain, he loses control and his pickup veers off the road. Barely recovering, Bob calls Nelson, and then reaches a roadside cafe, where he immediately heads to the bathroom, startling patrons with his bloodied face. Overcoming the pain, Bob washes the blood off his hands, which are already bandaged, and examines his side. It becomes clear that a piece of his skin has become invisible, making his internal organs visible. Bob bandages himself with towels and returns to the dining area, where Nelson soon arrives. The dealer agrees to tow and fix Bob's pickup in exchange for Bob serving as his courier, as Bob is heading in the needed direction. Nelson admires Bob's hockey talent and confesses that he still watches Bob's old games. He tries to offer support, but Bob cuts off his attempts to befriend him and reluctantly agrees to become a courier. Nelson brings Bob home and then heads to a dump frequented by bears, where he shoots one of the animals and guts it on the spot. In the morning, Nelson delivers a container with the bear's organs to Bob, which are to be sold on the black market. The pickup is already repaired and Bob sets off, reaching his ex-wife's house late in the evening. Darling lets Bob inside and informs him that Eva is staying over at a friend's. In the morning, Bob prepares to meet Nelson's contact, who runs a repair shop in town. At that moment, Eva appears, happy to see her father, but hurt when he refuses to take her with him. Bob drives to the shop where the owner's employees greet him with a search, but the owner recognizes the former hockey player. He warns that working with Nelson is dangerous and advises Bob to think about the future. Nevertheless, he hands over the package for the dealer and, noticing Bob's unwell appearance, gives him a Chinese remedy from a local store. Later, Bob returns home, and Eva also notices that her father is feeling unwell, but he brushes it off as ribs injured at work. Suddenly, Eva asks about the diagnosis of her grandfather, Bob's father, who had died long ago. Bob explains that his father voluntarily ended his life due to issues with his head. After the conversation, Eva runs off to her friends but stops by a Chinese pharmacy on the way. The seller is very welcoming and even suggests visiting a doctor who is available right there in the next room. Even when Eva refuses to buy anything, the seller gives her herbal tea to improve her skin. Later, Eva meets up with her friends who suggest touring an abandoned psychiatric hospital. Although one of her friends is hesitant, Eva insists on going. They wander through the creepy rooms, scaring each other with possible ghost encounters. Eva confesses that her grandfather was once a patient there, a man she never knew as he died before she was born. She hopes to find old documents to learn his diagnosis. The group descends into the basement and is frightened by a figure in a white sheet, but it turns out to be just a pile of rags. In terror, Eva's friend grabs her hand, tugs at her sleeve, and sees a transparent hand. The girl becomes even more frightened and runs away. Meanwhile, Eva's parents recall their years together and Eva's childhood pranks, like when she went to school on her own at the age of 6. In the morning, Darling discovers that Eva didn't spend the night at home. She's her friend, and Bob begins searching for Eva, but she's neither at the hospital nor the police station. Darling goes to the station to file a report, and Bob starts investigating his daughter's belongings. He finds her phone and reads a chat with friends about the planned excursion. The couple goes to Eva's friend's house, but her father says their daughter isn't there. Later, Bob calls Nelson and reports that the delivery will be delayed, displeasing the dealer. Bob finds Eva's friends, who act provocatively, and he loses control. At the same time, Eva regains consciousness in an iron cage. Meanwhile, her parents drive to the psychiatric hospital and enter the still-functioning part. Security tries to stop them, but Bob gets into a fight and collapses from severe pain. The chief physician, who remembers both his father and Bob well, comes out. She asks Darling to leave her husband in the clinic as he is not well. Bob recalls himself as a little boy in the same corridor. Later, Bob argues with the doctor who calls his father's death a tragic accident as he witnessed it himself. The woman confesses that Bob's father wanted to die to hide his illness from others as he was very afraid for his family. Bob immediately remembers how his father asked not to be shown to his son. The doctor reminds him that she couldn't stop the disease, but protected the man. She shows Bob his father's room from where he watched his son's life and offers Bob a place in the clinic, promising to study his illness and provide all necessary care. Bob categorically refuses, stating that Eva needs him. Despite this, they lock him up. At night, Bob wakes to the sound of an opening door and sees the way clear with a bunch of keys on the bedside table. He dresses and leaves, arriving home to find Darling absent and her friend frantic with worry. Nelson calls again, threatening Bob by listing his family members, which drives him over the edge. Hearing his swearing, Darling's friend tells him that girls have been disappearing in the town for a long time and demands action. Bob goes to her friend's house again, this time meeting the girl, who confesses that she knows Eva's secret. She is like Bob. She hands over Eva's backpack, and Bob finds a package of Chinese tea similar to the one he received from Nelson's contact. Bob goes to the man and questions him about the missing girls. Offended, the man insists that despite his illegal activities, he is a father and grandfather and would not kidnap people. He directs Bob to the Chinese pharmacy. Meanwhile, unknown people examine Eva, probing her wounds and causing her to cry. Bob finds the pharmacy and tells the seller about his missing daughter. The woman is scared but hesitant to reveal the truth. Then Bob notices Eva's bicycle in the back of the shop. He removes his hood, revealing his disappearing flesh, and the woman realizes Eva is like him. She tries to protect the doctor, glancing toward his office. Realizing this, Bob rushes in that direction, stripping off his clothes along the way. He descends into the basement, finds the doctor and his assistant, and starts beating them, demanding his daughter back. He then hears Eva's voice calling him from a cage. Seeing what her father looks like, Eva is scared, but Bob calms her down and opens the cage. The doctor manages to wound him, but Bob leaves with his daughter. As a parting gift, the seller gives him tea that will help Eva and advises them to run. Father and daughter arrive home, and Darling immediately begins to provide help. It turns out she knew the father's secret and knows what to do. She couldn't confess to her daughter because she was afraid for her. In the morning, Bob regains consciousness and tells Eva that he had to leave because of the illness. Eva confesses that she quit sports when she started having the same issues, thinking she was alone in this. It turns out her father and grandfather also suffered from invisibility. Later, Bob prepares to leave, although Eva doesn't want him to go. He confesses that his strength is leaving him and soon everyone might find out his secret. He says goodbye to Darling as Eva appears at the doorway with bags, intending to drive her father home herself. Through tears, her mother agrees to let her go. Father and daughter set off, and along the way, Eva starts asking questions. Bob admits that after what he experienced in childhood, he couldn't burden his family, so he left. Eva promises to make up for everything they missed in their relationship. Soon they arrive at the place where Nelson's new courier is waiting. Bob needs to meet him but notices that his face is also beginning to disappear. Eva covers the void with foundation and Bob goes to the meeting. He delivers the package passed by his boss and returns to the car. They reach Bob's home, and he hands over the tea he got from the Chinese lady to Eva. She brews it and cares for her weakened father. He assures her that she can live there peacefully since people in the north don't meddle in each other's affairs. Meanwhile, Nelson opens the package and finds that he has been deceived. Eva goes shopping, and the dealer notices her. Later, she tries to calm her father, who has become almost invisible. After a while, he suddenly says that it's time for him to go because soon he won't be able to accomplish what he planned. He's ready to disappear at the sawmill, which he had already tried to do. Despite her objections, Bob drives to the factory, but standing over the crusher, he suddenly stops. At this time, an armed Nelson bursts into his house, threatening Eva with a shotgun and demanding to know where Bob is. Even though Eva says that he sold the house to her, Nelson realizes it's not true since Bob's belongings are still there. He accuses Bob of dishonesty and decides to take it out on Eva. Suddenly, something throws him away from her. Eva realizes that her father, now completely invisible, has returned and is using this to beat the villain. Bob demands that Nelson leave his family alone but misjudges his strength and kills the dealer. He confesses that he could not leave his daughter a second time and now he will always be with her. Later, they dump Nelson's body at a dump where a bear finds it. Eva buys herself tinted glasses, sits in the empty car, and talks to her father, who advises her to drink her magic tea as it helps. He confesses that when she was 6, he secretly followed her to school. He recalls how his father had told him that he didn't want his son to see him in a certain way, which Bob always interpreted as referring to death. But now he wonders who pulled him out of the psychiatric hospital. Eva immediately remembers the white figure from the basement, smiles, and suggests talking to her grandfather. Buckling the seatbelt over the void, father and daughter set off.